जब श्रीला प्रभुपाद जी की जय, श्री श्री राधा गिरधारी भगवान की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरे हरे बोल. So Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So first of all, I would like to thank you, His Grace Amrish Prabhu, His Grace Purna Prajna Mataji, and His Grace Krishna Samarpan Krishna Prabhu for giving me this opportunity to speak on Nectar of Instruction, text number 5 today. So I think I will start Prabhuji with the recitation until the devotee join. So Nectar of Instruction, text number 5. Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta dikshasti chet pranitibhischa bhajantam isham shushrooshaya bhajana vignam ananyam anya nindati shunya ridama ipasita sangha labdhya. Krishneti yasya giritam manasandriyeta dikshasti chet pranatibhischa bhajantam isham shushrooshaya bhajana vignam ananyam anya nindadi shunya ridama ipasita sangha labdhya. Krishneti yasya giritam manasandriyeta dikshasti cheta pranatibhishta bhajantam isham shushrooshaya bhajana vignam ananyam anya nindadi shunya ridama ipasita sangha labdhya. Krishneti yasya giritam manasandriyeta dikshasti cheta pranatibhisha bhajantam isham shushrooshaya bhajana vignam ananyam anya nindadi shunya ridama ipasita sangha labdhya. So now we'll go through the word-to-word synonyms and translation. So for word-to-word synonyms, translation and purport, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ji ki Jai. So Krishna, the holy name of Lord Krishna. Iti, thus. Yasya, of whom. Giri, in the words or speech. Tam, him. Manasa, by the mind. Adriyeta, one must honor. Diksha, initiation. Asti, there is. Cheta, if. Pranati, biha, by obeisances. Cha, also. Bhajantam, engage in devotional service. Isham, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shushrushaya, by practical service. Bhajana Vignama, one who is advanced in devotional service. Ananyam, without deviation. Anya ninda adi, of blasphemy of others, etc. Shunya, completely devoid. Rhythm, whose heart. Ipsita, desirable. Sangha, association. Labdhya, by gaining. So, the holy name of Lord Krishna thus of whom, in the words or speech, him by the mind one must honor. Initiation there is, if by obeisances also engage in devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by practical service, bhajana vignana, one who is advanced in devotional service, without deviation or blasphemy of others, etc., completely devoid, whose heart desirable association by gaining. So this is a word-to-word synonyms. So when you read, it doesn't instantly make sense, but actually when you read the translation, I think it will perfectly make sense. Srila Prabhupada has given the translation. So Hare Krishna Mayuresh. So we have just started the Nectar of Instruction text 5, and we have just recited the verse. So you just joined now, so I will recite again. Do you have the book in front of you, or do you want me to share the screen?
Yes, Prabhuji. They can catch up later on, Prabhuji.
Yes. Okay.
We'll catch up next week. You continue with the program.
Okay. So Nectar of Instruction 5. So Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta. So the first line of the verse, so it's talking about the Kanishta Adhikari, or the neophyte devotee, one who actually chants the holy name of a Lord. Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta. So he should be honored in a mind, as word synonym says, the holy name of Lord Krishna, of whom in the words of speech, who's actually chanting, he should be honored in the mind. One must honor. So the first line talking about the Kanishta Adhikari. And then Dikshasti Cheta Pranati Bhishya Bhajantam Isham. So the second line is actually describing the position of Madhyam Adhikari. So we will discuss actually this different categorization of devotees, as we go through the purport. So he's talking about a second class devotee, the Madhyam Adhikari. So one who has actually undergone the formal initiation process, is actually initiated by his spiritual master. So here is saying that he should be actually paid humble obeisances, honored in that way. And then Shushrusaya Bhajana Vignama Ananya Anya Nindadi Shunya Ridham Ipsita Sangha Labdhya. So last two lines of this verse is actually talking about the traits of a pure devotee of the Lord. So he's called Uttam Adhikari. So this is actually the verse. Krishneti yasya giritam mansadriyeta dikshasti cheta pranatibhishya bhajantam isham shushrusaya bhajana vignam ananyanya nindadi shunya ridham ipsita sangalabhya. So now we'll go on to the translation. One should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation, Diksha, and is engaged in worshipping the deity. And one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service, whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So Srila Prabhupada has given very nice translation and the purport. So intermediate class devotees, Mayuresh, you must have read the purport and translation as well. We'll just first focus on translation, try to actually understand at a high level, and then we'll actually continue with the purport. So Mayuresh, you want to read the translation again and see, what you understood by that?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Translation. One should mentally. Can you hear me, Prabhu?
Yes. Yes, Prabhu. Yeah.
One should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotees who has undergone spiritual initiation, Diksha, and is engaged in worshipping the deity. And one one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others.
Yes. So what the translation is indicating, what Srila Prabhupada is, trying to say in the translation. So anything is unclear in the translation. So Srila Prabhupada is basically describing, how to actually we should behave towards a different class of devotees, right? So the first one is one who's chanting the holy name of the Lord. Anyone who chants, Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Here is saying that we must honor him, at least in the mind. We should actually respect that devotee who's chanting the holy name of the Lord. And he's saying one should offer the humble obeisances to a devotee, who has actually received the diksha from his spiritual master and engage in worshipping the deity. So here Srila Prabhupada is actually, the translation is saying that how to actually treat, or actually behave toward us different class of a devotee. And the third one is saying that one should associate with and faithfully serve the pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. So the pure devotee actually described here as advanced devotee, and he is actually engaged in undeviated devotional service. Undeviated. So what do we understand by undeviated?
Undeviated means serving Krishna without any deviation or without like it's a daily process, without any giving any excuses. The devotee serve the Krishna every day.
Yes, he's actually engaged in loving devotional service 24/7, satata. Yeah, and undeviated also mean without any material motive. And when there is no any material motive, Srila Prabhupada says that service can become continuous, without any interruption. So unmotivated and uninterrupted. Ahituki apratihata, what we call it. Yeah? So that's actually one of the trait of a pure devotee of the Lord. He's always thinking about serving Lord Krishna, or actually how to actually preach this message of Krishna consciousness to the general public. So he's always 24/7 actually engaged in the devotional service. And second point here mentioned that he do not have any kind of propensity to criticize others in his heart, right? So he's devoid of that propensity. Yeah? Because with ordinary people like me or general public, that we tend to criticize very easily. But we have this habit of finding a faults. So when we actually look at the Uttamadhikari, he do not have any propensity to criticize anyone, right? So his heart is completely pure. So that is actually very advanced stage, the Paramahamsa stage, what we call it, is the Uttamadhikari. So Srila Prabhupada actually, as we go through the purport, those points will become very, very clear. Okay, let's start with the purport. So you want to read?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
Prabhu. Do you want me to just share the screen, or you have the book in front of you?
No, I have the book too.
Okay, let's go.
Hare Krishna. Purport: in order to intelligently apply the sixfold loving reciprocations mentioned in the previous verse, one must select proper persons with careful discrimination. Srila Rupa Goswami therefore advises that we should meet the Vaishnavas in an appropriate way, according to their particular status. In this verse, he tells us how to deal with three types of devotees: the Kanishtadhikari, Madhyamadhikari, and Uttamadhikari. The Kanishtadhikari is neophyte who has received the Harinam initiation from spiritual master and is trying to chant the holy name of Krishna. One should respect such a person with his mind as a Kanishta Vaishnava. The Madhyamadhikari has received spiritual initiation from spiritual master and has been fully engaged by him in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The Madhyamadhikari should be considered to be situated midway in devotional service. The Uttamadhikari or highest devotee is one who is very advanced in devotional service. An Uttamadhikari is not interested in blaspheming others. His heart is completely clean and he has attained the realized state of unalloyed Krishna consciousness. According to Srila Rupa Goswami, the association and the service of such a Bhagavata or perfect Vaishnava is most desirable.
Okay. So let's actually focus on this first paragraph. What Srila Prabhupada is actually describing here. So the very first actually statement Srila Prabhupada is making, that in order to intelligently apply the sixfold loving reciprocations mentioned in the previous verse, one must select a proper person with a careful discrimination. So what are the 6 loving reciprocations, right? You discussed that in the previous verse. Sanjay Prabhu gave a very nice class on that. So you remember what are the 6 reciprocations?
Yes, Prabhu. Receiving gifts from the Vaishnavas, offering gifts to the Vaishnavas, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring about the Supreme confidently, giving and receiving the prasadam, honoring the prasadam. Yeah, those are the 6 reciprocations.
Yeah, so offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gift, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasad and offering prasad, right? Are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another, right? So these exchanges are very intimate exchanges between the devotees, right? So you cannot just go and actually do this with any devotee, right? Without any proper knowledge. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that we should be actually use our intelligence. If you actually do decide to follow these actually instructions given in the text number 4, that to have these loving exchanges, you need to know the devotee, right? You cannot just go to any devotee you do not know and actually reveal your mind, right? So you do not know actually to what level that devotee has actually advanced the devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that one must use his intelligence, right? To actually, before we proceed and actually have these exchanges between the devotees. So intelligently applying, right? So here say one must select a proper person with a careful discrimination, right? So one of the function of the intelligence is to discriminate, right? So discrimination is very, very important. And Srila Rupa Goswami therefore advises that we should meet Vaishnavas in a proper or appropriate way. So here they stated actually 3 categories of devotees. First one is actually the neophyte devotee, is Kanishta Adhikari, right? Who's actually beginner on this path of devotional service. The second one is a Madhyamadhikari. So he's actually, as it is said in the part, he's a midway between Kanishta Adhikari and advanced pure devotee, that is Uttamadhikari. And the third one is Uttamadhikari, right? So he's a pure devotee of the Lord, right? And he is 24/7 engaged in serving Lord, and actually is always thinking how to spread this Krishna consciousness across the world. And he has actually no any material attachment. His devotional service is undeviated. There's no material motive. And he sees everyone on the same level, all the living entities. There is no discrimination because his heart is completely clean. So normally they do not discriminate between different living entities or devotees, right? They see everyone on the same platform. So that is one of the very important quality of the Uttamadhikari. And that's why it is said that actually when we talk about preaching, Uttamadhikari, actually preaching has to be done at the Madhyamadhikari level because he can actually discriminate, right? One must discriminate. to who to preach, who not to preach. So those points will come as we go. So these are the three categories of the devotees, and I think so all the qualities or the traits of these all three categories are actually discussed in this purport very nicely. So with the Kanishtadhikari, it says a neophyte devotee, right, who has received the Harinam initiation from the spiritual master and is trying to chant the holy name of the Krishna. One should respect such person within his mind as a Kanishta Vaishnava. So what do we understand by this statement? Any realization? Soumya Mataji also joined. Hare Krishna, Soumya Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah.
So what I understood is, Prabhu, the Kanishtadhikari, the person who is chanting the name of Krishna, that means he believes in Supreme Lord and he is a Vaishnava. So we should respect the Vaishnava, whether he is Kanishta or Madhyamadhikari or Uttamadhikari. So I think we should respect and honor the even Kanishtadhikari.
Yeah, so Kanishtadhikari actually, who is actually chanting the holy name of the Lord, he also has a special status, right? Even if he's at the lowest stage of devotional service, he still actually stands out of the ordinary crowd, right? So if you think in today's world, what is the population of the world? Now it's about 8 billion. And how many people actually chant the holy name of Krishna? So today, just looking at the, Hare Krishna or, ISKCON, maybe they claim to be about 1 million devotees in the world, right? So as compared to 1 billion, this comes about 0.01%. So it's kind of rare, So actually, who's chanting the holy name of the Lord? And further in the purport, if you go, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we are actually asked about this, and there is actually reference given from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antilila. Sorry. Visheshilas, Satyaraj Khan, a great devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, asked the Lord how a Vaishnava could be recognized, right? So Lord replied, Prabhu kahe yandra mukhe suni ek bar, Krishna naam sai puja, shreshta sabkar. Prabhu kahe yandra mukhe suni ek bar, Krishna naam sai puja, shreshta sabkar. If one hears a person say even once a word Krishna, that person should be accepted as the best man out of the common group. Okay. So this is actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually instructed. So any person, even if he actually recite the word Krishna once, he's saying that that person should be accepted as best man out of the common group. So, there is a great importance given, one who actually has a Krishna's name, on his tongue, So that's why it says, even if you actually, with a firm faith, even one actually recite the name of Lord Krishna, even once, all his actually sins from his previous, thousands of life is actually destroyed at once. So we need to have that firm faith, So, and then he goes and says, Atayeva yandra mukhe eka Krishna nama saita Vaishnava kariya tanahara samana. One who is interested in chanting the holy name of Krishna, or who by practice likes the chant Krishna's name, should be accepted as a Vaishnava and offered respect such as at least within one's mind. Right? So this is actually instruction coming from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, right? So they are very actually bona fide instructions. So one who's actually chanting, holy name of Lord Krishna, even they are not properly purified, they should be still respected. Within one's mind. All right. Any questions on this point, or do we have? So, Mataji, before we move on? No? Okay. So that is a Kanishta Adhikari. The short definition is given there, right? Who has received the Harinam initiation from spiritual master. Then Madhyamadhikari has received a spiritual initiation from a spiritual master and has been fully engaged by him in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The Madhyamadhikari should be considered to be situated midway in a devotional service. So definition given here or description given here for Madhyamadhikari is he is formally initiated, right? He has received the Diksha from a spiritual master, bona fide spiritual master. And he is engaged by him in a transcendental loving service of Lord Krishna. It's called Madhyamadhikari. Yeah, so there is a more actually discussion. We will going to actually discuss what a Madhyamadhikari mean. So this is actually, we should actually realize what are the differences, right? So as we go, we should actually able to discriminate or differentiate devotees. But this is not our objective. Actually, when you go to the temple, that is not actually what we do, that this is Kanishthadhikari, this is Madhyamadhikari. But we should know, actually how to respect. So Kanishthadhikari normally do not know, even is chanting holy name, he do not know the Vaishnava etiquette, how to actually properly respect other devotees. So we'll actually discuss this point as we go. So Madhyamadhikari has received a formal initiation. Yeah? So that is also important, and we will also discuss what is the actual meaning of Diksha. And then Uttamadhikari, highest devotee, is one who is very advanced in devotional service, right? The Uttamadhikari is not interested in blaspheming others. His heart is completely clean. He has attained the realized state of unalloyed Krishna consciousness. Right? So this is describing the pure devotee of the Lord, right? So do you know the example of pure devotee you have seen or heard?
Srila Prabhupada.
Yes, yeah. So Srila Prabhupada is a
Guru Maharaj also.
Yeah. So Uttamadhikari, right? So we know actually what are the traits of the Uttamadhikari. So this verse is very, very important. So this is a training for beginners. Actually, who's the Kanishthadhikari, who's the Madhyamadhikari, who's the Uttamadhikari. But even Srila Prabhupada was Uttamadhikari. Actually, he come down to the level of Madhyamadhikari in order to preach. Okay, so that's another point. Actually, we will also discuss. But so you actually, do we have now clear actually concept of these three categories of devotees?
Yes, Prabhu.
Let's move on, and then we will actually discuss each one separately now. So continue reading, Mayuresh.
One should not remain in Kanishta Adhikari, one who is situated on lowest platform of devotional service and is interested only in worshipping a deity in the temple. Such a devotee is described in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, canto 11, chapter 2, verse 47. Archayam eva haraye pujam yah shraddhaye ihate na tada bhakteshu chanyeshu sabhakta prakrata smrata. A person who is very faithfully engaged in the worship of the deity in the temple, but who does not know how to behave toward devotees or people in general is called Prakrit Bhakta or Kanishta Adhikari. One therefore has to raise himself from the position of Kanishta Adhikari to the platform of Madhyama Adhikari. The Madhyama Adhikari is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 2, verse 46 in this way. Ishvare tad adineshu balesheshu disatsu cha prema maitri kropeksha yah karoti sa madhyama. The Madhyamadhikari is a devotee who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the highest object of love, makes friends with the Lord's devotees, is merciful to the ignorant, and avoids those who are envious by nature.
Okay. So here there are two references given by Srila Prabhupada. Actually, the first one is describing the Kanishta Adhikari, and the second one is describing the Madhyamadhikari. So this reference from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 2, verse 47. Yeah? Archayam eva haraye pujjam yah shraddha yehate na tad bhakteshu channeshu sa bhaktaha prakritaha smritaha. So person who is very faithfully engaged in worship of the deity in a temple, but who does not know how to behave towards devotees or people in general, is called Prakrit Bhakt or Kanishtadhikari. So here is saying that yes, the Kanishtadhikari is one who is actually engaged in chanting the holy name of the Lord. Yeah, and he is engaged in deity worship in a temple. So, but Kanishtadhikari, he thinks that God is only present in temple. He actually see the deity, he worship the deity daily. And he thinks that actually Krishna is only present in temple and not outside of a temple, right? So he do not have this all-pervading, concept that Krishna is present everywhere, in everything, in entire creation. He do not have this knowledge, or he do not have that faith, right? So he only think that Krishna is present only in a temple. And second point, he here mentioned that he do not know how to respect other devotees, or have no idea about exalted position of a pure devotee, or any Madhyamadhika or preachers. So he's still not actually elevated himself to that level where he has actually learned these etiquettes, or have actually realized what is their actual position. So while reading through that, actually the reference, where it is given that because of his limited knowledge, and normally because he's engaged in deity worship, sometimes he's become puffed up by his own, ceremonial worship, and he thinks that actually there is no one more pious than him, yeah, or no one is more advanced than him. So that what he thinks out of a ego, right? So it's good that he's engaged in chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra and is regularly doing the deity worship, but he's still not actually actually progressed to the next level where he actually realizes actually there are devotees who are more advanced than him or more pious than him, right? And there are actually Madhyamadhikaris who are the actually preachers, who are very faithfully engaged in service of the Lord and doing the preaching work. So he normally sometimes he criticizes them as well, out of ignorance. And sometimes because he do not have that proper actually understanding, in the name of compassion or kindness, sometimes he also actually approves, the materialistic activities, or non-devotional activities of other materialistic people. And he's also sometimes actually fascinated by material opulence or people who come to the temple who are very opulent, So you can see the people who are very neophyte, even actually when we are actually new, even now actually, we just we get impressed, if somebody is too rich, if they are actually donating big sum of money and all that. So we think that those people are very important, or we give more importance to those kind of people. But we fail to recognize the actual the pure devotees, or other madhyamadikaris, who are actually more advanced, on this path of devotional service. So there are many things, and so just looking at his actually traits or behavior, it is very clear that actually he's thinking on a bodily platform. Yeah, and it is said that such a Kanishta Adhikari, where he do not have the actually proper knowledge about all pervading nature of Lord Krishna, that Krishna is everywhere, all this actually material and spiritual creation, in every atom, Krishna is there, So as it says, kan kan mein base hai Ram. So that is the actually the vision of a pure devotee, right? But Kanishta Adhikari only thinks that actually Krishna is in a temple, and that's why he's actually only engaged in worshipping a deity, and he do not even know that how to actually respect, and do not recognize that there are more advanced people than him, and actually he should respect them in a certain way. So that is actually position of a Kanishta Adhikari. So we have actually, we are actually going through the stage, right? So we have to actually try to learn as we study this nectar of instruction. So we are actually try to learn the etiquettes of how to become a proper Vaishnava and offer proper respect to other devotees. So it says that if Kanishta Adhikari, if he has a faith in a Vedic instructions, or if he has a faith in instructions given in Srimad Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, and if he faithfully accept those instructions under the guidance of spiritual master, then he can actually progress, to the level of Uttam Adhikari, and eventually to the Madhyam Adhikari, and then eventually to the Uttam Adhikari. So he can progress unless he do not criticizes or blaspheme the pure devotee of the Lord. That is very, very important. So by now, you must know that there are the 10 offenses to the holy name of the Lord, right? And what is the first offense? So, Mataji, do you know what is the first offense to the holy name? No? Yeah. Moirish?
Chanting without the attention, like without concentrating on the holy name.
No, the first offense is to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. Right? So that is the first offense, right? So if you actually, if you're doing actually offense, or actually criticizing the pure devotees or Madhyamadikaris for what they are doing, so you are conducting a great offense at the lotus feet of Vaishnava. And with that offense, your progress will be checked. You will not progress on this path of devotional service. So it's very, very important that you should know these offenses, So you should know these 10 offenses by heart, right? So the first step is to actually recite these offenses daily and memorize them by heart, right? And by doing so, because you are reciting every day, then you will try to realize that actually, as you recite every day, you will know your faults by doing that. Trust me, it works, because by just reciting, then you will realize one point, every day. Because we are committing a lot of offenses when we chant. We're committing offenses when we dealing with other devotees, because our ahankar or ego always come in the way. So this process given by Srila Prabhupada, so chanting the 16 rounds. So normally, when you start the deity worship, when you start performing the Mangala Arati and all that, then all these prayers, we recite in the morning. So one must try to understand what is the meaning of those instructions. So once you have that information, then you will think about it, contemplate on those points, and then you actually ask questions if you do not know how to actually correct those offenses, right? If you're committing one. So this is the first offense and very important offense, because it is said that if one commit the offense at the lotus feet of pure Vaishnava, it is called a mad elephant offense. So it's very, very serious, because when you chant, if you're chanting 16 rounds, your objective is to actually progress, right? Progress slowly on this path. And you hope to become a pure devotee one day, right? But if you're committing offense, then your progress will be checked. So this is actually mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, the reference that is given there. And you must have heard as well, we had many discussion, in beginner's class, classes given by His Grace Amrish Prabhu, that point have came many times. One must be very, very respectful towards devotees, especially the devotees who are actually training you, right? So you have been actually given all this instruction. So that is where the second point comes in about the Diksha. So Diksha, the Diksha means there is a formal ceremony, the sacrifice, and their vows are actually exchanged and all that. So that is actually the formal process. But actual meaning of Diksha is actually, this is a transmission of knowledge, So that is coming from your Shiksha Guru or Diksha Guru to his disciple. So one who is actually training you, actually helping you progress on this path, and if you actually commit offense against him, or there are Vaishnavas who's on the similar platform, then it's very hard to receive the mercy of that Vaishnava, right? So, and mercy of ultimately, Shishi Radha Krishna. So how are you going to progress? So these are the very basic points that one must know, if you actually want to progress on this path. So, so make it actually, commitment that you will actually recite these 10 verses, 10 offenses every day. So you recite every day, and there are 10, they're very instructive, and it's very, very applicable in your daily life, what you do. One of the actually last offense is to actually, chant without, any attentive, when you're not attentive when you chant, it's also offense. So even if you're Kanishtadhikari, if you're chanting the 16 rounds, but if you're not focusing on your rounds, so that is also considered as an offense. Yeah, and if you're actually getting all these instructions, attending these classes, you're learning, but if you're not progressing, if your life is not changing, so that is also considered an offense. So this is number 10. So make sure actually, you recite these 10 offenses every day, and probably you should know by heart, So we're discussing the actually Kanishtadhikari, So these are the actually various things that actually has been pointed out. And Kanishtadhikari is also important point is that Kanishtadhikari is not, he should not actually do the preaching as well. So this is a point actually mentioned by Srila Jiva Goswami, where he says, Kanishtadhikari is practically useless for practical preaching work unless he comes to a higher stage of understanding. Right? So unless you're properly trained, actually, you progress to the next level, then, and also, when you want to preach, then you should actually have received, actually this, you should actually have this permission, or actually should be recognized by your actually Shiksha Guru. You should always preach on behalf. So we are all Kanishta, and not even Kanishta, we're trying to become a Kanishta Adhikari probably. Because we still have all this actually anarthas, right, in our heart, that we still cannot actually fully focus while we chant. We do not still know all the etiquettes, how to actually behave with actually Uttamadhikari or Madhyamadhikari. So we are still in a learning mode. So this verse is very, very important. So it teaches you what are the different categories, and it teaches you how to actually behave towards a particular kind of devotee, right? So that is actually main point of discussion here. So point, Srila Prabhupada says that Kanishta Adhikari, one therefore has to raise himself from the position of Kanishta Adhikari to the platform of Madhyam Adhikari, right? So one should not remain at the same level of Kanishta Adhikari, yeah? So there has to be progress. It's also mentioned that being actually Kanishta Adhikari, being a very neophyte, Kanishta Adhikari actually he fails to recognize that Lord, Supreme Lord Krishna is he's a glorious, and he has a 6 opulences, right? So he may have heard that the Krishna has 6 opulences, right? Aishwarasya Samagrasya Virasya Yashasya Shriyaha Jnana Vairagya Yoshaiva Sanambhaga Itingana. So that is a basically definition of personality of Godhead, that is Lord Krishna, right? Is definition given by Parashar Muni. So Bhagavan, so he has 6 opulences, right? So he's very opulent, he's very glorious, he has all the fame, all the beauty, all the strength, all the power, all the renunciation. So he's so glorious, and all his actually very intimate, close associates. So that would be again his pure devotees, because Lord is so glorious, his devotees are also equally glorious. Yeah. So by failing to recognize this, can lead to actually, mistakes as well. So he can, Kanishta Adhikari, without knowing this, because he do not have this knowledge or realization, he actually sometimes criticizes the activities of a Madhyama or Uttamadhikari. Yeah. So that's why actually lack of knowledge is sometimes dangerous, right? Or lack of realization. And that's why you need a spiritual master who can actually properly train you, right? So that's why you cannot actually progress on your own strength, just by studying yourself without Guru Shish Parampara. There is no hope of proper progress, right? You have to go through the bona fide source. So you have to accept the Shiksha Guru, and you submissively inquire, and then you receive the instructions. So that way you will know, what is your position, how to progress on this path, what are the do's, what are the don'ts. So when you follow all this, when you know all these offenses and how not to commit them, then by following all the instruction given in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, as it is said, that there is a hope that he can actually gradually progress to the next level. And by not committing serious offenses against pure devotees, he can be actually raised to the level of Madhyamadhikari. So further in the purport, Srila Prabhupada actually describes actually who is actually fit for the initiation or Diksha. Because it is said that Madhyamadikari is actually formally initiated. No? He has received the Diksha. So to get to the stage, actually, there are actually, it is properly described by Srila Prabhupada in Pradhan and Purport. So we will actually continue with this discussion, and we focus today on Kanishtadhikari. What is the definition of Kanishtadhikari? What are the traits of his Kanishtadhikari? What he believes, what mistakes he normally does. So we discuss today Kanishtadhikari. So in the next week, we'll focus on Madhyamadhikari and Uttamadhikari. So please read this purport carefully again. And because I want to have this station more of a actually, discussion rather than I'm speaking and you're listening. So you read, you think about the points, what you understand, what you do not understand, you share your realization. That way you have better understanding. Because if I'm only speaking and you're listening, then probably you will go, after a few days, you will forget all about this. Yeah. So that happens if you're not coming back and actually, referring back to these points. So next week you read properly and share your realization, and then we discuss those points, what you do not understand as well, right? So we'll keep this more interactive kind of discussion, because you're not on the beginner class, you're at the intermediate class. So we expect you to study on your own as well. And you should have actually realization or questions. If you do not understand, you make a note of all the questions you want to ask. Yeah. Or if you want to actually post that, in advance in our intermediate group, that would be better. So we come prepared, actually to how to answer your questions as well. Okay then. And this verse is very, very important because you missed actually, because when I began this class, we recited this verse. It has a particular meter that you need to sing. Right. So you practice that, and next week we will start with the recitation again. And as we mentioned, week before that, we want all of you to actually remember these verses by heart, the verses and translation as well. Yeah. So practice this verse. I think it is initially it may feel a little bit difficult to actually recite, but if you sing in that particular meter, it's very melodious. So sing the verse, remember the translation, and read the purport again, and come with your questions next time. Yeah. So there's 5 minutes left to our main program now. So we will conclude this session. Do you have any questions before we do this? Soumya Mataji, still there? Okay then. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Amrish Prabhu, for this opportunity.
Hare Bol Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for a nice class and realization. I just wanted to share something as we discussed. Just one point that when you mention analogy of world population and how many are Krishna conscious, we should not restrict it only to ISKCON. ISKCON is a small portion of how many devotees of Krishna are there in the world.
Yes. Yeah.
If you go to Vrindavan, then in Kartik, then it's full with devotees of Krishna, and they are not only in ISKCON devotees. Even our Gaudiya Vaishnavas are many. So we have to be a little bit careful about that. There are so many other organizations of Gaudiya Math, and they are also there. And yeah, so just that very important point.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah. It came to my mind, but I think, thank you for correcting me, Prabhuji. Yeah, that's an important point. Other sampradayas as well there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll meet in 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So those who joined us on YouTube, we'll be back in about 5 minutes with our main program then. We'll give a link again here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.